like to welcome everyone to the annual general meeting for the Saskatchewan College of Pharmacy Professionals. This is our 110th, annual general meeting, but our second virtual one. So welcome everyone and thank you for attending online. I am Marilyn Younghouse. I am currently the past president of SCPP. Stephanie Scott is the president, but she is unable to host today. She is, I think, exactly due today, so she is was not certain she was going to be available for today, so she decided to hand off the chairing role. So I agreed to step in and chair for her. And thank you, Stephanie, for allowing me to, and good luck with the soon-to-be new little Scott that will be joining your family. I would like to keep everybody on mute. If you have unmuted, you may find yourself muted just to keep any background noise. If you do have any questions or anything coming up, please use the chat box, and we'll have a moderator just inform me if anything shows up in there, if there are any questions. And there may be opportunity to raise your hand as well. But yeah, just please keep yourself muted just so we can keep the background noise to a minimum. So we'll get started. I'd like to acknowledge that the land on which we live, work, and gather is Treaty 2, 4, 5, 6, 8, and 10 territory, the traditional land of the Cree, Dakota, Dene, Nakota, Saulteaux, and homeland of the Métis Nation. This is a quick look at the agenda. And the first thing I'd like to do is go through and, sorry if you hear my dogs barking in the background, introduce the officers of council. So Stephanie Scott from Weyburn is our current president. Rod Amaya is the president-elect from Saskatoon. Amy Wiebe is the vice president and also holds Division 8 seat from Saskatoon. That's myself, the past president. Which should say Lloydminster. Division 2 representative, Kyla Jackson from Hudson Bay. Division 3 is Jash Patel from Prince Albert. Division 4 is Shauna Nowakowski from Saskatoon. Division 5 is Scott Zabo from Regina. Division 6 is Brandon Cron from Swift Current. Division 7 is Tanya Horkoff from Warman. Our ex officio, Dean Jane Alcorn from Saskatoon, and our designate ex officio, Yvonne Shevchuk from Saskatoon. Our public members are Bonnie Caven and Mark Hawkins, both of Regina, and Michael Lumberding from St. Brew. Unfortunately, Dean Jane Alcorn and Michael Lumberding were not able to attend the AGM today. We also have our senior stick representative is Kelly Hugh. And we have two technician observers on council currently, Lindsay Brackstad from Tisdale and Michelle Miller from Saskatoon. Now I would like to ask that the minutes of the 109th annual general meeting of the SCPP held on Wednesday, September 23rd via WebEx be adopted as printed in the 2020 annual report. So if someone could use the chat box function to make the motion to adopt those minutes, please. Yvonne has so moved. Thank you, Yvonne. And Stephen Carey has seconded. In lieu of doing a poll, decided to just approve those minutes by a vote of opposition. So is anyone opposed to the motion on the table? And seeing no one, then we will present that motion as carried. Thank you very much. So this year, council did do some elections. This was the first year of electing into our new council structure, so they did look a little bit different this year. We held elections in the following categories of rural pharmacist number 1, rural pharmacist number 2, hospital pharmacy technician, and urban pharmacist number 2. And, all right, trying to keep a couple screens going here. Our hospital pharmacy technician was filled by Tracy Martins, and she won by acclamation. And then rural pharmacist number 1 was elected Tanya Horkoff, into rural pharmacist number 2, Roseanne Bagno, and then into the urban pharmacist number 2 position was Sarah Kazuski. So congratulations to the new council members coming on, and Tanya coming back on council. She was on council previously. Their term begins July 1st, and they will join council at that point. We also have some appointees for SCPP to represent on other councils. So to our Canadian Council on Continuing Education and Pharmacy, we have Danielle Laroque. To the National Association of Pharmacy Regulatory Authorities is Gina Wendell. The appointee to the Pharmacy Examining Board of Canada was Suzanne Golka. The appointee to the University of Saskatchewan Senate is Christine Perduca. And the appointee to the University of Regina Senate is Linda Siltz. I'd just like to take a moment now to recognize those members that the SCPP is aware of who have lost their lives this year. So if we could please bow our heads in a moment of silent tribute to them as I read their names. James Dorkson and Gary Reynolds. Thank you for that. I'd now like to refer to the President's Report, which is on page 5 of the annual report. For the President's Report, I would ask the General Assembly if there are any questions arising from the President's Report. Annual report was circulated to all members by email and is available on the website as well. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat box. Okay, and seeing no questions, then I would like to invite Registrar Gina Wendell to present the 2020 SCPP Registrars Report and the 2020 SCPP Financial Report. Gina?
Perfect. Thank you so much, Marilyn. So if you want to refer to page 7 of the annual report, so you can see the Registrar's Report is encompassing in there. I would ask the General Assembly if there's any questions on that report. Okay, hearing none, so I'll move forward into financial presentation. And we also have our auditor Deloitte on the line, should there be any additional financial questions after my report as well. So I will refer you to page 43 of the annual report, and you can follow along if you like with my presentation. And this is just to give some highlights of the audit committee, of the financial reports, and a brief summary of the 2021 financial budget as well. So for those that aren't aware, The approval process. So the audit committee met on April the 7th of 2021, and that's comprised of the president, president-elect, and vice president, one of our public members from council, Bonnie. We have a member at large, and then we also have Valerie Watson and Shadab Takir from Deloitte. The recommendation from the audit committee was to approve the financial reports as well as hearing the auditor's financial letter for us as well. Just this afternoon, council met on June 9th to review the financial reports and have approved the audit committee's recommendations to approve the financials. Next slide. So the balance sheet, the financial position shows on page 45 of the annual report. So total assets increased by 6.8% over 2019. Our current liabilities are showing slightly less than 2019, and that is primarily due to lower accounts payable and some deferred lease incentive adjustments. And our unrestricted fund balance increased over 2019 due to a surplus in our financials in 2020. And the statement of operations, so page 46 of the annual report. Revenues show in Schedule 1, which is on page 54, shows an increase by around $398,000 over 2019. And that is mostly twofold due to the increase in the number of pharmacies and as well as number of licenses. And next. And sundry revenue, which is on page 55, is Schedule 2. And that shows an increase of approximately $84,000 over 2019. And that's primarily due to the recovery of discipline costs for hearings held in 2020, for which fines and or costs were paid, ordered paid in 2020. So when they were heard and when they were due in the same year. And then next. So the statement of operations on page 46 speaks to the investment income. So our investment income for 2020 turned out to be just over $200,000, which was consistent with 2019 at just over $210,000. Our investment policy is very low risk, despite a rocky beginning in 2020 due to COVID. Our investments actually did very well. Both of these 2019 and 2020 are fairly unusual returns. Historically, we've seen returns of 30, 40,000. We had made some switches with our investment advisor to remain low risk, but we did diversify a little bit out of bonds more into equities to protect because the bond market is not favorable over the last few years. So some of those moves have resulted in better returns on our investments. In consultation with our financial advisor, we tend to budget fairly conservatively in this account, roughly $70,000 to $80,000 per year. So as you can see, the last 2 years have outperformed significantly. Next. And again, administrative costs. So there's a Schedule 3 on page 56 in the report. Shows building operations is around $30,000 over 2019. And again, this is primarily includes our location on Park Street as well as the condo that we own and lease out, and includes such things as condo fees, property taxes, the janitorial, as well as leased furniture, which will be dropping off over another 2 years of time. And there was quite a few increases in property taxes for both the condo and common area costs at the facility due to City of Regina making some adjustments to tax base. Next. So administrative line again on Schedule 3 of page 56. Again, employee benefits are slightly higher in 2020. We did add a line in for transparency on bad debt. So occasionally the college does have to write off bad debt, such as outstanding discipline costs that remain unpaid. And we did have one former member not pay last year in November. We did hire an external consultant last year to support the college in redoing our jurisprudence exam. It's a high stakes exam that must require consultation with psychometricians and experts in the field. So we've got 3 new exams that have been generated. So that's a new line that we've added in there as well for transparency on hiring of external consultants. And salaries are showing a bit higher over 2019 due to some new staffing that started in 2019 in a staggered approach. So it was a staggered year versus a full year in 2020. And you can see travel expenses are greatly reduced last year as a result of COVID and virtual meetings. And just general other expenses. So amortization increased slightly over 2019. Compass subscription was slightly higher over 2019, and that's due to the increased number of pharmacies versus any changes to the fee structure. Continuing education decreased slightly over 2019, and again, that was due to a slight decrease in membership as we weren't able to license any new grants last year, and also one-time funding costs of travel health in 2019. Our legal costs did decrease slightly over 2019, even though we had an increase in complaints and discipline, as well as ADRs. However, we had a bit less corporate legal work due to COVID and other SCPP priorities. And you can see our council expense did significantly decrease as well, and that was a reduction in travel and accommodation costs as a result of virtual meetings. Delegates travel, which is officers of council, travel reduced greatly compared to 2019 just due to virtual meetings and in some cases no meetings. And other committees in public and professional relations were slightly lower than 2019 but fairly similar. And so our revenues are showing up, as mentioned, over 2019 by 484,000 roughly. Expenses are up over 2019 by 62,000, which is based on increases to administration costs, which is listed in Schedule 3, which I have gone over. We're showing a surplus of 514,000 roughly in 2020 as compared to 91,000 in 2019, and mentioned where the significant surplus came from, which was our investments as well as costs and fines and discipline for which we don't budget for, as well as cost savings due to reduction in travel and those kind of things, so decrease in expenses. So our fund balance at the end of 2020 was just over $2 million, which is an increase over 2019 of roughly $437,740. And so this slide just gives a little bit of a bit more information on the financials with respect to our cash on hand. So at the end of December 31st, cash on hand was just over 840,000. That cash on hand stays in the bank as opposed to moving into reserves, as it is used operationally to support the college up until the next renewal cycle, so to afford operations. And so that money is put toward operational costs in 2021 until renewals period reaches usually April and May. So total reserves is just over 2.5 million, and out of that, 500,000 is reserved for our catastrophic discipline fund, and 50% of those administrative costs are also reserved based on policy. So that's just about 1.3 million in total. So that leaves an unrestricted fund balance of around $987,000. When we make the budget for the 2021 year, which we have done, the policy of 50% administrative costs, obviously costs go up each year. So there's just over 1.4 million required based on the policy of administrative costs. So just over 115,000 needs to come out of unrestricted reserves to support that. And then in addition, council approved roughly 474,000 of the unrestricted reserves to be put towards some projects for meeting the strategic goals and plan of the college. And in addition to one-time funding costs to support some operations within the college as well. And so next. We do have a few other funds. So we have a building fund and we have a training and competency fund. So these are restricted for those uses. So the building fund has some monies in it, and should we run into any difficulties with the condo that we own, whether we need to maintain it, find a new tenant, it goes empty or any of those kind of things, those are funds to support that. And the training and competency fund, council has approved using some monies out of there to support hiring an expert in adult education and competency to help towards the college's strategic goal of a functioning competency assurance program. So that is coming out of there. And just some highlights for 2021. So you can see we're projecting roughly a $35,000 surplus. There is no changes expected to CPDPP education grants. Compass surcharge remains the same and unchanged. Increased fees to match the consumer price index of 1.6% for 2021. Complaints and discipline continues, unfortunately, to increase within the college, and so we have a part-time contracted complaints investigator position, and that is funded out of reserve. So that is again part of the funding council approved to support work within the college for operational goals. Regular council and committee activity continues, regular programming continues, and continuation of the Compass program. We continue to support MedSask. They are completing updates to the minor ailments, as well as updating the required education modules for prescriptive authority. So that is coming still this year. And it supports contracting, as I mentioned, an expert in competency assurance and adult education for our competency assurance committee, which is, I guess, now a task force to support the strategic goal of having a functioning competency assurance system by the end of 2024. It does support the addition of another field officer, and it supports enhanced social media and communication platforms, which aligns with our strategic plan. And it supports a managed services agreement for SCPP's IT services, in addition to a full IT audit and updating antivirus software to ensure the college is secure and protected for our data. And it also supports, as I mentioned, the strategic plan as set by council by aligning both financial and human resources properly in our budget. So, and I'm happy to take any questions at all. Yes, seeing none, I will turn it back over to you, Marilyn.
Thank you, Gina.
You're welcome.
So at this time, I would like to ask the attendees if you have any general comments or questions regarding the 2020 SCPP annual report. And I'm not seeing anything come up in the chat box for that either. So again, I'd like to ask, this is the section when we have new business. Is there any new business to be discussed? Does anyone want to bring forward any new business? And watching the chat box. Not seeing anything. Okay. Then I now declare this the 110th Saskatchewan College of Pharmacy Professionals Annual General Meeting to be adjourned. Next on the agenda will be the recognition of our public and member volunteers. So a certificate of recognition is presented to councillors and committee members of the Saskatchewan College of Pharmacy Professionals for their dedication and contribution to the public and to the Council of SCPP. So for their service on SCPP committees, we would like to thank Lyle Brandt, Beverly Brooks, Mila Bullock, Zach Dumont, Shauna Gerling, Christiana Goodmanson, Jeffrey Herbert, Karen Jensen, Devin Johnson, Spiro, names are hard, Spiro Kolitsis, Arlene Kuntz, Monica Lawrence, Sharon Lyons, Shauna Nowakowski, Carol Pano, Riza Pardillo, Manan Patel, Tyler Sutter, Margaret Wheaton, and Bridget Zacharias. For their service on the SPB Council, members retiring or leaving Council this year, Lindsay Brackstad, Bradley Cooper, Kelly Hugh, Michelle Miller, Josh Van Patel, Scott Sabo, George Thomas, and myself. Upon her retirement as an SCPP appointee to the University of Saskatchewan Senate, Christine Perduca. And now I'd just like to take a minute and thank everybody out there. I'm stepping off council at this point. This is my last set of council meetings today and tomorrow, which is quite emotional for me. When I first came onto council, I didn't actually think it would take such a spot in my heart, but it has. And we have done lots of work over my time sitting on council, and part of it was to put in the new council structure and things like that. With that, we did also put an exit clause that prevents anybody from coming back on without a 5-year washout period. So I can't even get back in there right away if I wanted to, which is definitely still for the right reasons. But looking back now, maybe it was a bad decision. I'm not sure. I would like to commend all our members for all the extra hard work that they have done this year with COVID. It has been an extraordinary year again. And as always, pharmacists have stepped up and done the right things. And now our participation in the vaccination program and things like that, it just makes me really proud to be part of everyone out there, and the level of professionalism and things that are displayed. It's wonderful to have that many colleagues and things that the public can know that we're acting safely towards, and that we make an impact on people every day. The new council structure going forward, I also think is going to be great. It's a little bit smaller, as according to our act. We wanted to make sure that we followed all the act guidelines that were there as well. But it's maybe distributed a little differently, not necessarily on geography, but on type of practice. So I'm looking forward to seeing where that takes us. Council's been hard at work again this over the past year, and lots of things accomplished and lots of things in progress. And just want to reassure you that definitely the conversations at the table are thoughtful and proactive and moving forward, and the staff that we have at SCPP is doing a fantastic job on making sure that we're able to maintain our self-regulated status and pushing forward things that are really appropriate. And so I'd like to commend and thank the staff as well for all their hard work as they work to keep our profession moving forward. So at this point, we would like to move into the presidential installation part of the agenda. So I'd like to again invite Registrar Gina Wendell to perform the presidential installation. Gina?
Great. Thank you very much, Marilyn. I really appreciate that. Again, we're having to do this virtually, so I do apologize for the folks, but maybe this will be our last year. Rod and Maya, having been duly elected as president of the Saskatchewan College of Pharmacy Professionals for the 2021-2022 professional year, commencing July 1st of 2021, in this capacity, it has been and will continue to be your duty to preside in the college over all meetings of the college, to sign all certificates, diplomas, and other instruments or documents executed on behalf of the college, and to present a report to the annual meeting of the college and be ex officio a member of all committees. It will further be your duty to conduct the affairs of this college so that members may have the pride in the profession, and so that citizens of this province will recognize that they have been professionally served by those whom your office will represent. I ask then, do you agree to accept this office to serve your college to the best of your ability?
It wouldn't be a WebEx meeting if there wasn't anything like this. I do.
Perfect. I do invest you with this emblem of your office, which is a gavel with your name embroidered on it with our logo, and now declare you, Rod Amaya, installed as president of the Saskatchewan College of Pharmacy Professionals. Congratulations, Rod.
Thank you, Gina. Well, that was fun. I tell you, it's starting well, and I think that I'm okay with technology. I'd like to start by acknowledging that I am speaking from Treaty 6 territory, the traditional territory of the Cree, Saulteaux, Stoney, Nakota, Dakota, and the traditional home of the Métis. Thank you for attending the 110th SCPP AGM, the second and hopefully the last AGM conducted virtually in compliance with public health orders. I would like to extend my gratitude to Stephanie for her leadership during the difficult year, and congratulate her for the upcoming and very quickly coming addition to her family. Also, I'd like to thank Marilyn for graciously stepping in for sharing her second virtual meeting and done it much better than without having to go into mute. Well, the COVID-19 pandemic has changed our lives. For me, the pandemic feels like a very slow-moving storm. As a major storm, the pandemic will leave behind considerable damage, and it will change the way we do things. However, we can count on the fact that the storm will come to an end. Then again, it is not the external physical damage left behind that result in the deepest and long-lasting wounds. It is actually the human experience of living through a storm that scars survivors. Murakami, I hope I said it right, an award-winning Japanese writer, eloquently described the human experience of living through a storm. He wrote, "Once the storm is over, you won't remember how you made it through, how you managed to survive. You won't even be sure whether the storm is really over. But one thing is certain, when you come out of the storm, you won't be the same person walked in." The pandemic caused significant damage. Over 550 families in Saskatchewan mourned the loss of loved ones to COVID. Today, nearly 50,000 cases have been confirmed in the province, and many of those patients suffer severely, and many more are enduring lingering effects. In addition, many of us struggle with mental health issues, and yet others grapple with isolation and burnout. The pandemic changed the way we do things, how we communicate. Today we use words and phrases that a few months ago were rarely reused, didn't exist, but they have a different meaning and connotation, such as unprecedented. How many times we heard that? Self-isolation, new normal, and some good ones like speaking moistly, pandemic, and flatten the curve. The pandemic also changed the way we behave. We keep socially distant. We use FaceTime, Zoom, and WebEx to get together with friends and share a drink, and you forget to unmute. More importantly, many of our friends and family lost their jobs, their businesses, and their livelihoods. Today, we can see the sunlight peeking through the storm clouds and the beautiful prairie blue skies on the horizon. 816,000 vaccines have been administered in the province. Almost 145,000 citizens are fully vaccinated, and 530 more have their first dose already. Every day we inch closer to meeting that vaccination target for completing the Saskatchewan reopening roadmap. While I'm vaccinating, I'm so moved to hear grandmothers tell me how excited they are to hug their grandchildren again. And mothers who cannot wait for travel restrictions to be lifted to see their son who lives in Alberta. Then the storm is near. Getting to this point wasn't easy though. It required the effort of many essential workers who showed up despite the fear, uncertainty, and anxiety. The human experience of pharmacy professionals can be described in 3 simple words: resilience, passion, and purpose. Pharmacy professionals have a long and proud history of servicing their communities. At the start of the province-wide stay-home orders, as frontline essential workers, we did not have the opportunity to work from home. Instead, we responded to the call to deliver primary care services. ensure access to essential supplies, and help our patients through disruption of regular health services. I am incredibly proud to be part of this group of dedicated professionals, just like Marilyn said, and essential workers who toil day in and day out to deliver care in uncertain times and who drove to work on eerily empty streets. Saskatchewan pharmacy professionals demonstrated their tenacity and their resilience. Along them, SCPP staff worked diligently with various healthcare partners to provide us with novel tools to care for our patients, provide quality pharmaceutical services, and secure access to care. Daily, the office sent communications, multiple memos, web, social media posts to inform pharmacies about the latest information and development. We had to adapt and action new guidelines and policies quickly and often. Pharmacy professionals never waver in their commitment to care for patients, sometimes at a high personal cost. Some of us experience burnout. However, I prefer the term compassion fatigue. Only passion for the profession, our patients, and our teams help us transform that compassion fatigue into compassion satisfaction. Pharmacists were instrumental in preventing the pandemic last fall, delivering over 50% of influenza vaccines in the province. And when the Minister of Health and the Scpp amended regulations, bylaws, and policies, 58 registered pharmacy technicians, 74% of all student interns, and over half of the registered extended interns answered the call for help and achieved their certification to administer COVID-19 vaccines in order to help 1,300 other pharmacists in the effort to inoculate as many people as quickly as possible. Pharmacy managers and their teams have to scale up efforts to manage the extra workload of injecting and answering those phones. Although the pandemic has taken a lot of our collective time and energy, we still need to deliver on our core services. Scpp and pharmacy professionals continue to live their purpose. Council and the office will continue to focus on building excellence in pharmacy profession through regulation for the benefit of the residents of Saskatchewan. In addition to the challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic, pharmacy professionals continue to fight the opioid crisis. In response, our council last year developed policies to address problems raised by the provincial auditor regarding opioid dispensing practices. Given the critical role of pharmacists as stewards of opioids, council identified opportunities for training and launched the harm reduction training umbrella in partnership with CPDPP. The majority of registrants opted for the optional advanced version of training, a clear indication of the commitment to care. Today I must recognize and celebrate your efforts during the pandemic. Thank you for showing up when everybody else stayed home. Gina, thank you to you and your team for developing innovative regulatory changes to provide pharmacy professionals with the tools needed in a timely manner. Special thanks to my team for their efforts day in and day out. So we're not the same profession or professionals that went into the storm. We have scars to prove our resilience and our commitment to care during the pandemic. More importantly, We demonstrated that the value we bring to our communities and to the healthcare system. The wind is on our sails and the sun is shining. It is my goal to lead Council and SCPP to work collaboratively with our partners to continue to create regulations that enable pharmacy professionals to deliver exceptional care to their patients. I am confident that next year will be filled with opportunities to share with loved ones. To do the things we took for granted before the pandemic, and for pharmacy professionals to continue to fill healthcare gaps in our community. I will close by sharing a few lines from one of my favorite Michael Bublé songs. Bublé. It's not Bublé. Bublé. I just couldn't express my enthusiasm and excitement for the life after the pandemic any better. It's a new day. It's a new life. It's a new world. And I'm feeling good. We have reached the end of our agenda, and thank you very much for attending.